Welcome. You're listening to John Hyman from Commercial Real Estate Online. We're a specialised website that helps commercial real estate agents and brokers around the world when it comes to property activity, be it in sales, leasing or property management. And indeed, if you haven't visited us before, you can certainly do so at the website, which is commercial-realestate-training.com. At that website, we share lots of information relating to the different segments of the industry. You can also get a free ebook and also some audio activities there on podcast, which is very useful. So that's the website if you haven't heard about us before. But for the moment, now let's have a look at this particular program. And this is one of the training programs certainly selected for the specialisation that the industry does require. Commercial real estate is a lot different to other parts of the industry and far more specialised than residential property. And in this particular video, I'd just like to cover one thing, and that is the subject of property management. Now, this is a very large matrix. I cover very many issues in this in my videos online on YouTube to support the activities of agents and brokers. And from time to time, I select particular topics to explain how to approach the industry. And today, I'd like to choose property management. Now, property management is commercial property management, and commercial by definition is office, industrial and retail property. Now, if you look at the property management process, it can be split up into a number of different things. And here's some topics here for you. You may be able to add to these items based on your location or perhaps your property type. But these are the most common that you should bring into your property management processes in your brokerage, in your agency. So, firstly, asset planning. Next, financial reporting. Thirdly, the handover checks and controls, the way in which you bring a property into your brokerage, and of course controlling that property for the clients and the landlords that you act for. There will also be a need to look after lease management to ensure that you understand what's going on within the leases for the tenancies within the property. And then I'll talk about some PERT and Gantt models, perhaps in a later video, the PERT and Gantt models that can be used to keep your portfolio well under control. Further to that, in property management, there's the physical property inspections, also the physical management of the property, that is maintenance management. Then there is rent and lease optimization. The idea here is that you can improve the rent and the lease situation for the landlord over time through tenant management and, of course, lease documentation. And, of course, rent collection is something you'd expect when it comes to property management activity. And lastly, tenant management. So if you were looking at property management as one topic, you're now going to split that up into a number of different things: asset planning, financial reporting, handover checks, lease management, a PERT and a Gantt model to progress you through the property management process, physical inspections, physical management controls, as in maintenance, the rent and the lease optimization, rent collection and tenant management. So let's choose a couple of these for this particular video today. Let's have a look at asset planning, number 1 on the list. Now, asset planning is there for a specific reason. It's to allow the property manager to control the property over time and for the financial year for the landlord. Now, the asset plan will involve tenant management and also maintenance budgeting. But when you have a look at the asset itself, it's made up of a number of different things. Income, of course, expenditure, and also lease documentation. So asset planning is quite important. In saying that, let's have a look at some of the aspects of tenant management. Now, tenant management means that you're going to control the tenant through the lease duration and also through the financial year to make sure that the tenant does the right thing from an occupancy perspective. I'll put a few things here for you to consider and remember as part of tenant management. So if you've got one tenant or if you've got 50 tenants, of course, the more tenants you have, the busier things get, and you will need some sort of software program to support and help you as part of managing that particular group of tenants. And if you have a large property like a shopping centre, well, tenant management is really, really important. And each day you should be talking to the tenants in the property, watching their leases, understanding their rent payments, and all in all, you'll be very busy. But that's a good thing. That's why you're in the industry. And of course, it is my view that property managers bring a lot of skills and specialisation to the part of the industry, which is commercial, industrial and retail property. So tenant management, what is it? Well, there's the arrears controls and the checks that should occur every day and each week to make sure that the tenants are paying their rentals on time. And of course, what is rental? Well, rental is the rent itself for the premises, but the rent can also be recovery of outgoings and also third income streams associated with special licenses such as signage, storage or car parking. So understand that arrears covers the entire lease package relative to the tenant. Understand the lease document so that you know how to recover income from the tenant and watch for any arrears situations that could destabilise the property. Now, arrears, controls and checks and balances should occur each day and each week. Don't let the arrears get out of control, because that is a financial disaster, both for you as the property manager and also for the landlord over time. Now, there should be a set of budgets and forecasts for every property that you manage, be it small or large. And the budgets should reflect the income to come in for the property over time, the income being rental, outgoings and third income streams, and also forecasts relating to net income after expenditure has been deducted from the property. Now, every good property that you manage, that is something that's paying you a reasonable management fee and you have a good client as part of a landlord that you serve, you should have a building manual for that property. And indeed, some of these buildings in this particular matrix in the background here, they would have building manuals to support tenant occupancy, to tell the tenant exactly what should and shouldn't occur over time, and that building manual will be a control tool, a device that's given to the tenant as part of lease acceptance, lease negotiation and lease management. Now, the building manual is something that exists for the duration of the lease. The tenant fit-out guide is something that's given to the tenant as part of starting occupancy at the start of the overall lease negotiation. And of course, let's say the rentals have been agreed with the landlord, that's all good, but you still have the situation where the tenant has to carry out the fit-out. Now, they need to be controlled, because if there's a tenant in one of these buildings, again in the background here, if there's a tenant putting in a fit-out within their newly negotiated leased space, they can be quite disruptive when it comes to other tenants nearby on the same floor or in the same building, because believe me, a tenant fit-out and the associated noise that comes from a tenant fit-out can travel through the building quite significantly through the reinforced concrete down through the building and make a lot of noise to be an inconvenience to other tenants in occupancy. So that's why you need a tenant fit-out guide to set the rules for the tenants so they don't do the wrong thing when it comes to fitting out their premises. And of course, there should be some tenant interviews in an ongoing way so that you can understand what the tenant is doing, how business is going, whether they are under any pressures individually from an occupancy perspective. And when you have meetings with tenants, you should keep minutes of those meetings and of course track any issues which are current and need to be resolved. Over time, if you have a building with many tenants, the records of all those tenant interviews will support you when any disagreements occur. And of course, if you have any current issues under the current lease documents, such as rent reviews, options, make good provisions, refurbishment, insurance, that sort of thing, the tenant interviews, the regular tenant interviews that you have with the tenants in the building will help you stay on top of all of those issues. So that is a summation of the tenant management process within property management. I did start the video here talking about property management. I went straight into tenant management and I said, right, well, let's have a look at tenant management. What do you need to control as part of that process? Well, you control the money, the arrears. You control the budgets and the forecasts regards the tenants, the rentals they're paying and the net income for the landlord. Then you have a building manual to keep the tenants under control from an occupancy perspective. Then you have a tenant fit-out guide to control them during the fit-out stage so they don't do anything wrong. And of course you have ongoing tenant interviews. So that's a very simple process. That's the tenant management process as part of property management. And of course, I've got a lot of other topics within this particular toolbox. That's the commercial real estate toolbox that I talk about in the videos here. And I'll cover some other topics later this week in some other videos. And if you'd like to know more about us or get our free articles, our tips and our templates from our online posting, by all means check out the website, which is commercial-realestate-training.com. And my name is John Highman. I'm glad that you can join us today. There will be another video coming out very soon on another topic to help you in commercial real estate sales, leasing and property management. Catch you again very soon.